So you want to buy a football team, find a stadium, sign some players, watch the trophies come in. But here's the strange part. Almost every top football club in the world loses money on the pitch. Real Madrid, Manchester United, Barcelona, Chelsea. The biggest names in the sport routinely post operating losses. In the 2024-25 season, the 20 clubs in the Premier League lost over $1 billion combined before interest and tax. Chelsea alone lost $346 million, an English record. And yet, Manchester United is worth $7.2 billion. Real Madrid is worth $9.5 billion. A club can bleed cash every single year and still be one of the most valuable assets on the planet. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how that's possible, why owning a football club is nothing like owning a normal business, why one relegation can cost a club $200 million overnight, and why the smartest investors in the world are lining up to buy clubs anyway. Football clubs come in wildly different tiers, and they're really three different businesses wearing the same jersey. A lower league or mid-market club, think a championship side in England, or a mid-table club in a smaller European league, sells for tens of millions. Sunderland played in England's second tier last season and made just $50 million in total revenue. That's a small business. A gym chain makes more. A solid top-flight club sits in the hundreds of millions to low billions. Newcastle United was bought by Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund in 2021 for around $400 million, including debt. Aston Villa has grown 56% in value in the last year alone, just from qualifying for the Champions League. And then there's the elite tier, where the numbers stop making sense. Real Madrid posted $1.27 billion in revenue for the 2024-25 season, the highest revenue ever recorded by a sports team, ahead of the Dallas Cowboys. Chelsea sold for $5.3 billion in 2022, still the largest sale price for any sports team in history at the time. That's not a football club. That's a mid-cap public company that happens to wear shin pads. But the purchase price is never the whole story. There are two costs almost nobody warns you about before you sign. The first is the wage bill, and in football it isn't optional the way it is in most industries. There is no salary cap in Europe. None. If your rivals are willing to pay a player $400,000 a week, you either match it or you watch him leave for someone who will. Some clubs spend 70, even 80% of total revenue just on player wages before a single euro goes toward the stadium, the staff, or the electricity bill. The second cost is relegation, and this is where football stops resembling any other business on earth. Imagine you buy a restaurant. On a bad year, revenue dips 10–15%. Painful, but survivable. Now imagine that if your restaurant serves one bad meal out of 38 this year, the government relocates you to a worse neighborhood, cuts your delivery contracts by 80%, and slashes your revenue by tens of millions of dollars, automatically, with no appeal. That's relegation. In the Premier League, 3 clubs get demoted to the second tier, the Championship, every single season. Southampton finished bottom of the league in 2024-25 and still earned $148 million in broadcast revenue just for having been in the league. Drop into the Championship, and that number can fall by more than half overnight. Sunderland's entire revenue in the Championship was $50 million. Promoted straight back to the Premier League, that same club is projected to earn around $270 million this year. Same players, same stadium, same city. The only thing that changed is which division they're standing in. This is the single biggest reason football clubs behave differently from every other business you've studied. A hotel chain doesn't lose 80% of its revenue because of one bad quarter. A football club can. So, if the downside is this brutal, where does the money actually come from when it works? 3 buckets. broadcast, commercial, and match day, and they are not remotely equal. Broadcast is the biggest one for most clubs, and it's basically television selling your product for you. The Premier League's domestic TV rights alone are worth $2.3 billion a year, split across 20 clubs by a formula that rewards finishing position, but still guarantees even the last-place team a massive check. Add international rights, and the Premier League's combined broadcast deal is worth more than the other 4 major European leagues put together. Commercial revenue is sponsorship, and at the top, it gets absurd. Emirates pays Real Madrid more than $80 million a year just to put its name on the shirt. Manchester United's kit deal with Adidas is worth over $100 million annually and comes with rights to sell replica jerseys globally. Barcelona pulled in $590 million in commercial revenue in a single season from partners like Spotify and Nike. Matchday revenue, tickets, hospitality, concessions, is usually the smallest bucket for the biggest clubs, which surprises people. Real Madrid made $368 million from matchday last season, more than any other club in the world, and it was still their third largest revenue stream behind broadcast and commercial. The stadium is really a content studio with really expensive seats. And then there's the wild card that dwarfs all three, the Champions League. Reach the final, and you're splitting a prize pool that's set to hit $3 billion once new UEFA broadcast deals kick in. Qualify for the competition at all, and your valuation can jump by double digits in a single year, the way Aston Villa's did. Here's the part that separates football from a normal industry entirely. Most owners aren't buying it to make money on the operating business. They're buying it for something else, and there are basically 4 flavors of buyer. The first is the leveraged financier. In 2005, the Glazer family bought Manchester United using a leveraged buyout, financing much of the deal with the club's own future revenue as collateral. The club itself ended up carrying hundreds of millions of dollars in debt that it didn't have before the takeover, and United fans are still, 20 years later, furious about the interest payments draining money that could have gone to the team. The second is the sportswasher. Newcastle United's ownership by Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund isn't primarily a financial play. It's a soft power play, buying global goodwill and headlines through football, where the operating losses are irrelevant next to the geopolitical return. The third is the trophy collector. Someone who is already worth billions and wants the prestige, the box seats, and dinner with the players. Chelsea's sale for $5.3 billion to a consortium led by Todd Boehly fits here, a price that made 0 cents on a pure cash flow basis, but made total sense if what you're actually buying is global relevance. The fourth, and rarest, is the true community model. The Green Bay Packers in the NFL are famous for this, but football has its own version in clubs with member ownership structures like Barcelona and Real Madrid, technically owned by their fan members rather than a single billionaire. No single person can ever sell the club out from under the supporters. It's slower, more democratic, and occasionally chaotic. But it's also the reason Real Madrid, of all clubs, can post the highest revenue in sports history without ever answering to a hedge fund. Given everything you just heard, why does virtually every top club lose money on paper? Because of one brutal dynamic, the wage arms race. If your club generates more revenue, you don't bank the extra as profit. You spend it chasing better players so you can generate even more revenue next year. It's an industry built entirely around reinvestment, and there's rarely a salary cap forcing anyone to stop. UEFA tried to fix this with financial fair play rules, which are supposed to stop clubs from spending wildly more than they earn. In practice, clubs have found workarounds: inflated sponsorship deals from companies linked to the owners, creative asset sales like Newcastle selling its own stadium to a related entity of its ownership group to flip a loss into a profit on paper. The rules exist. Getting around them has become its own competitive sport. And this is why football ownership rewards patience over profit. You're not buying a cash-flowing business. You're buying an asset that appreciates because global interest in the sport keeps growing, media rights keep climbing, and there's a hard limit on how many historic, globally recognized clubs will ever exist. Nobody is building a new Real Madrid. So here's the whole model in one sentence. Broadcast revenue, plus commercial deals, plus Champions League qualification, all of it funneled straight back into wages to avoid relegation, with the actual profit sitting not in the yearly accounts, but in the rising resale value of the club itself. Two real scenarios, real numbers. Scenario 1, you buy a mid-table championship club for around $50 million. Annual revenue, maybe 50 to 80 million. You're not chasing profit, you're chasing promotion. Get promoted to the Premier League, and your revenue can jump to 200 million plus overnight, and your valuation with it. Stay down, and you're running a modest regional business with a passionate but small fan base. Scenario 2. You buy an elite European club for several billion. Annual revenue, over $1 billion. Annual operating loss, entirely possible, even likely. But your asset is compounding in value every year, regardless, driven by global media rights deals, ticket demand, and a supply of world-class football clubs that will never increase. Real Madrid's valuation has grown for 5 straight years, while its recent trophy cabinet has actually gone quiet. The value was never really about the last 2 seasons, so if you're going to buy a football club, understand what you're actually buying. It isn't a cash-flowing business. It's a rare, globally recognized brand with guaranteed media attention, built on a business model that punishes you brutally for one bad season and rewards you enormously for patience over decades. The players score the goals. But the real game is being played in the boardroom, one broadcast deal at a time.